Back in 625 BC, the barbarians of the internet needed a way to converse and talk to each other without having to meet each other IRL. Not only that, but to communicate quicker and faster without needing a phone or using mail. So they came up with an electronic mailing list, like Usenet. They then evolved and were eventually adapted to the web. This turned into what we now know as the internet forum. Some of the first internet forums started to pop up during this initial period. People who only used the internet and didn't go outside that much, or at all, flocked to these forums and a great period of internet conversation occurred. Sites like Delphi and the infamous 2chan started to gain notoriety around the internet, and soon, the world. This era of internet would thrive and would only begin to gain even more popularity with various extremely popular sites. Fast forward to Y2K when things really started to take off. This is where we saw the popularity of sites like Something Awful and GameFAQs. This is also where we started to see forums really root themselves in internet culture. At the time, these were the biggest sites of the internet. Looking back on it now, that may seem hard to believe. Newgrounds, 2chan, shit, even the Yahoo boards were at the top of their game. The special thing about these forums is that each one had their own specific niche and interests that only attracted that crowd. Sites like Shmups and DVD Talk gained their own audience and thrived with a lovely community that they all could call home. In a way, it was very personal for everybody there. They all knew each other and everybody knew the same shit. They could help each other when needed without it feeling toxic or condescending. However, you also had sites like Something Awful, which started off as just a blog for Low-Tax to share what he thought was funny, blooming into the forum as we now know it today, hosting many communities and birthing many parts of internet culture as we know it. Even then though, you can see the cracks starting to form. Many people who use sites like Something Awful and even 4chan, which birthed from Something Awful, started to notice it becoming extremely toxic and unwelcoming. Part of this had to do with the owners, but most of it came from the community. People new to the forums were faced with harassment and often relegated, subjected as... This wouldn't be an issue though, as those who felt harassed could just leave and go to another forum which was more aligned for them. I am lonely, will anybody speak to me? All your base belonged to us, all started on forums. The world would begin to take notice, and even more people started to get on the forum action. This is where we saw sites at their peak, with some forums having upwards of 200,000 members at any given day. Overpopulation leads to many problems. Side effects not listed though include an angry owner and things out of your control, especially things out of your control. You can implement as many checks as you want to, but as your forum becomes more popular, bad actors come into play. People start to do stuff, illegal stuff even, and it all becomes overwhelming. You can hire moderators and administrators, but your community can start to become infested by these bad actors. The crack is really starting to develop now, but on a lighter note, there are really good people who can make your forum shine. Creative and artists especially. It's a shame that the bad actors overshadow the good, but that's just the way it is. Now your forum has become too big. You're fed up now. You don't even interact with the forum anymore. You've relegated that to your friends and moderators. The money's coming in and buyout offers are also coming in. The forum has become too infested with bad actors, and you look back on the times when your forum was just a small knit community that could converse without all the drama. And at the time, sites like Twitter and Facebook started to pop up. For some reason, they were able to maintain a huge community without all of the drama. So naturally, people started to create accounts there. It was also more accessible for the general public. You started to see something not really seen before in forums. Non-heavy internet users actually using the internet to converse without a forum. Well, technically it is a forum, just an advanced one. It's the 2010s now, and while forums are still a part of internet culture, the glory days are well over. The death, if you will. At this point, many forum owners are just tired. They've grown up and they don't want to continue hosting anymore. Some still do because it makes them money. Only the small forums seem to be fine with where they're at. Those sites then, like Twitter, YouTube, etc., are now becoming extremely big, and they have become the centerpieces of the internet. Basically what the forums used to be. They're more beginner friendly, and while they have their drama at times, it's nothing compared to the drama and controversy hosted on the forum. At this point, most of the original forums that shaped the internet started to shut down and become less active. Around 2016 is where I'll say most forums became dead. I don't mean completely shut down, but extremely non-active. From 100,000 to 100 at any given day. Meanwhile, this was the peak of sites like Twitter, Facebook, etc. People from these niche forums started to join other popular sites like Twitter, and at that point it was over. This year was also where we saw a particular site start to make its way up in the internet ecosystem. Now that we have the backstory, and we're here now, we can kind of understand the path and reasonings as to why things are the way they are now. There are still a few unanswered questions though. What made sites like Discord and Twitter so different from forums? And why have forums truly gone extinct? Could there have been an alternate reality where we still use forums? While we may never truly know the exact and definite answer, I'll give my possible explanations and reasonings. First, we need to tackle the biggest question. What really caused the death of forums? Based on the backstory provided and research, I think I know why. There were multiple factors that contribute to the death of forums. The first one, an obvious one that I alluded to in the backstory, was management. At first, for many forum owners, hosting a forum was fun. It was your own little community with people who thought and were interested in the same stuff as you. But eventually, the tide started to shift. As more people gained access to the internet and internet forums as a whole, management started to become a nightmare for many. Server costs, the community, and having to deal with that on top of your actual life. This leads to stress, and eventually many server owners become angry, lashing out at the community they cultivated. I can give many examples of this, but one perfect example is Lowtax. I won't go into his entire life because it is kind of depressing, but at first he was extremely happy with his forum. He had his own community of people who he thought were funny and truly creative. Over time, his forum became massive, becoming the forefront of internet culture. It became so bad, he had to start charging $10 for an account registration, as he couldn't continue hosting the server for free. That wasn't the issue though, as even with the paywall, many bad actors joined the forum and began ruining the reputation of Something Awful for the internet and people who wanted to join the site. His own community began to go against him, and eventually he shut himself off and distanced himself from the forum. Not saying his community was wrong for going against him, as he was a massive piece of shit, but still, it shows the relationship between forum owners and their community. Another factor which I believed aided in the death of forums was other sites, like Twitter and Discord. In my opinion, they learned from these early forums and figured out what not to do. They succeeded in an area critical where forums like 2chan failed. They were beginner friendly. Anyone can join Twitter and make friends without being harassed instantly, despite the toxic reputation Twitter has amassed recently. Sites like Discord perfected this beginner-friendly attitude. Let me put it this way, if you go outside and ask anyone if they use Discord, you probably have a realistic 1 out of 10 chance for someone to say yes. If we went back a decade and asked anyone if they use the GameFAQs forums, you'd realistically have a 1 out of 50 chance for someone to say yes. Half of this has to do with Discord advertising themselves better, partnering with many gaming companies, etc. But it also comes with the fact that many of these people were just embarrassed to admit that they use these forums because of the reputation and people behind it. But the true and honest reason has to come with the third factor: the community. As much as people don't want to say this, the community was a huge factor in the death of forum. Think about it. The past 2 reasons I just listed all have community in it some way, shape, or form. It's a general rule of thumb that if anything becomes extremely popular, the community is bound to become toxic and unfriendly. We see this often not only in just forums, but with shows like Rick and Morty and games like Overwatch, or even Valorant. But why? The community, especially people who were there for a long time, feel entitled and push new people out. And those new people go on to spread the word about that community and how they treated them. It's a never-ending cycle, and you see this so much nowadays thanks to how the internet consumes media. People might also find the community weird and express displeasure on what they do or how they do it. You can literally apply what I just said to basically any community or any forum that you think is toxic. The last and final reason is that people just grew up. Those who were initially on the forums in the beginning eventually had to grow up and get off the internet. And as that initial community got up and started contributing to society, there was nothing left to keep forums going, leaving them abandoned and forgotten. Most people on Twitter or any other popular social media site probably don't even know what a forum is. Chances are you watching don't even either. To me, that was a finishing blow. When you lose your initial crowd and those who helped build the forum, what reason is there to continue being on the forum? Now, with all factors into account, could there have been a way for forums to survive? In my opinion, yes. Selling themselves out to massive companies is one way, but I also believe that with the right advertising and right management, forums could be as big as Twitter or Discord. They could have even been the centerpiece of the internet, still contributing to internet culture. But now, social media like Twitter and TikTok have taken over. That is why forums are dead. Despite this though, a peculiar thing I noticed while researching this video was that upon going on many of the forums I researched, some of them, actually most of them, were still alive. A shell of what they used to be, but still alive. We could see a resurgence of forums maybe this decade, who knows? That's just my theory though.